Your biological signature is currently being choked by sentimental debris. Look at your severance threshold, the way your nervous system triggers an immediate surge of guilt, obligation, or nostalgia. The act of discharging your strategic capital whenever you consider removing a low-value human from your orbit, effectively allowing the matrix to install a relational anchor into your apex frequency. You are a biological unit experiencing a state of terminal inclusion liquidation. The matrix has successfully branded loyalty as a virtue and isolation as a defect. But in the terminal of the absolute power grid, social amputation is the only biological fact that determines who retains their kinetic energy and who is merely a host for a swarm of parasites. You are living in a state of chronic symbiotic infection, where your activation energy is being spent maintaining history rather than engineering a future. The system doesn't want your sovereignty. It wants your network to be the proof that your spirit has been successfully indexed as a socially managed unit for the architect. Thousands of years ago, superiority was defined by the biological capacity to discard the weak. Your ancestor, the sovereign of the unmapped dark, understood that old ties were a tracking beacon for the predator. He mastered primal grounding in the law of the surgical void. He didn't seek community support or lifelong friendships within the tribal hierarchy. He offered the visual rage of a total, unyielding social amputation, the state where you treat a non-contributing connection as a necrotic limb to be severed without anesthesia. His hierarchy was built on the foundation of the metabolic purity mandate, the understanding that the human brain is a machine that achieves its highest strategic density only when it operates as an individuated predator that has purged the need for company. His biological rebellion was his total refusal to carry the weight. He possessed a mind that treated childhood friends and complaining relatives as biological toxins, stripping away the social sludge until only the monolith of his raw, sharpened intent remained. He understood that the moment you stay out of obligation, you have surrendered your apex signature. To achieve purity, you must first become psychologically repulsed by the concept of belonging. Social amputation is the implementation of the collar of the absolute zero, the refusal of social friction, for your final internal dominance. The system wants you to be considerate and loyal, words that mean harvestable and weak. Absolute sovereignty is a biological siege of the connection grid. It is the visual rage of the architect, seeing the social grid for what it is, a series of obligation hooks, stimulus-response lures, and deciding to be the one who shorts the circuit by being indifferently alone. You must develop a clinical, cold contempt for mainstream social ethics. Keeping in touch is a horizontal bond for the herd to keep them tethered to a common level of stagnant mediocrity. Absolute presence is a vertical tool for the elite. You must learn to occupy the blind spots of the social radar. Use the temporal noose of the total social blackout to force your biology into a state of hyper-focus. Use the false safety of a calm, robotic delivery to mask the activation of your total internal independence. This is the color of freedom. By mastering the art of the unmoved soul, you become the only person in the room whose value is not being broadcast from their current list of contacts. The Matrix cannot simulate the leverage of a man who has no biological need for a witness. Your time is the temporal noose, and your need to be seen as a good friend is the knot. Every catch-up coffee you attend to be polite, and every family gathering you endure to avoid conflict is a signature on your own biological death warrant. I command you, initiate the total relational audit. Your mind is a biological weapon, and it is currently being jammed by the static of your own socialized fear of being cold. You must perform a hard reset of the tribal instincts. Stop being loyal, the industrial waste designed to keep you at the bottom of the ledger. Stop participating in their shared history myths and community building, the digital propaganda designed to make you believe that popularity is a victory. Stop using their social protocols, the narratives designed to keep you in a state of constant strategic failure. You must prune your life of relational parasites. If a person requires you to be reached to be valued, they are a biological saboteur. You must learn to love the weight of the absolute sovereignty. This is the monolith strategy, becoming a biological fortress that is the void by choice and sovereign by design. Command: sever the connection or be the host. The neural interface of your resource allocation is currently suffering from empathy signal poisoning. Look at your obligation threshold, the way your nervous system triggers a microspike of guilt or hesitation, the act of discharging your strategic potential. The moment you ignore a message from a non-productive entity, effectively allowing the matrix to install a social tether into your apex frequency. You are a biological unit experiencing a total focus sovereignty liquidation. The matrix has successfully replaced replaced your primal predator selection drive with a systemic inclusion protocol. You believe that by being there for people, you are building a network, but in the terminal of the absolute power grid, networks are just biological parasites used to ensure your neurological momentum is always slowed by the dead weight of the mediocre. This is the visual rage of the domesticated male, seeing your high-value activation energy being bled out into small talk and emotional support, while the true operator remains in a state of absolute zero, converting his total rejection of relational noise into a biological thrust that destroys the competition while they are still networking. The system doesn't want your empire, it wants your popularity to be the proof that your spirit has been successfully socialized and placed in a public service loop. In the ancient hierarchy, the law of the unbreaking stone, the master was the one who could survive the total deletion of the social witness. Your ancestor, the sovereign of the unmapped dark, understood that old connections were a tracking beacon for the scavenger, not an asset. He mastered primal grounding by becoming a relational autocrat, a figure who understood that the only way to retain authority was to be the primary void in a world of clinging drones. He didn't seek community validation or lifelong bonds within the tribal hierarchy. He provided the visual rage of a total, unannounced social excision. His hierarchy was built on the foundation of asymmetric disconnect, the understanding that the human brain is a machine that achieves peak respect density only when it realizes it is in the presence of a force that does not need anyone to confirm its reality. His biological rebellion was his total refusal to keep in touch. He possessed a mind that treated nostalgia as a biological trap, a signal that his trajectory was being averaged out by the herd. He understood that the moment you answer a call out of habit, you have surrendered your apex signature and become predictable biomass. To be a master, you must first become psychologically repulsed by the concept of loyalty to the unworthy. Social amputation is the activation of the anti-chew, the refusal to be socially digested protocol for your final internal dominance. The Matrix wants you to be reliable and considerate, words that mean harvestable and weak. Absolute sovereignty is a biological siege of the social baseline. It is the visual rage of the architect, seeing the social grid for what it is, a series of attachment hooks, stimulus-response lures, and deciding to be the one who shorts the circuit by being indifferently unreachable. You must develop a clinical cold contempt for mainstream social ethics. Checking in is a horizontal bond for the herd to keep them tethered to a common level of stagnant exhaustion. Absolute presence is a vertical tool for the elite. You must learn to occupy the psychological high ground by controlling the flow of your own biological signals. Use the temporal noose of the total social blackout to drive the system's influence into a state of tracking failure. Use the false safety of a calm, robotic delivery to mask the activation of your total internal independence. This is the color of freedom. By mastering the art of the unmoved soul, you become the only person in the room whose value is an unshakable physical fact. The one who can go the longest without checking if anyone is mad at him is the one who eventually owns the social field. Your time is the temporal noose, and your need to be seen as a good guy is the knot. Every reunion you attend to avoid appearing arrogant, and every favor you perform for a parasitic relative is a signature on your own biological death warrant. I command you, initiate the second stage of the amputation rearmament. Your mind is a biological engine, and it is currently being choked by the sentimental sludge of the unworthy. You must perform a total neural asset reset. Stop being loyal, the industrial waste designed to keep you at the bottom of the ledger. Stop being a node in their network of mutual emotional dependency. Stop being a unit of compliance in their ledger of men who can be manipulated by a shared past. You must prune your life with the collar of absolute sovereignty. If a relationship requires you to be available to be respected, the relationship is a biological failure. You must learn to love the weight of the absolute sovereignty. You must learn to love the friction-heavy hours where the noise of the collective is muted and your dominance is the only signal in the dark. This is the monolith strategy, becoming a biological fortress that is the void by choice and sovereign by design. Command: upgrade the isolation or be the host. Your biological trajectory has reached the terminal velocity of socialized neutralization. Look at your severance threshold, the exact moment your nervous system triggers a panic response because you have entered a space of high-tension relational decay and refused to save the connection, ignored the social safety valves of nostalgia and guilt, and entered the high-stakes vacuum where you are the only biological outlier in a world of clinging anchors. You are a biological system in a state of chronic activation decay. The system has successfully replaced your apex amputation sovereignty, the ability to surgically remove toxins, with a series of moral obligations disguised as being a loyal person. You no longer seek to dominate your own neural landscape through unmoving purity. You seek to keep in touch. You no longer seek to be the sovereign. You seek to be the reliable friend. This is the visual rage of the terminal slave, seeing your life force being digitized and archived in old-school group chats and family obligations, while your physical reality remains a quiet, managed enclosure of unfulfilled DNA. You are breathing in the toxic fumes of a collective that demands your availability as a form of tribute, leaving you lightheaded, fragmented, and fundamentally easy to dismantle because your will is tethered to the recognition of the average. The system doesn't want your evolution. It wants your sentimental compliance to be the foundation of its perpetual control over your temporal sovereignty. Return to the ancient hierarchy, the law of the unbreaking monolith. In the primal world, the master was the one who could remain a biological void, even in the center of total social isolation. Your ancestor, the sovereign of the absolute cold, understood that power was a product of species decoupling. He mastered primal grounding by becoming an impenetrable core, a figure whose value was his own capacity for total, unblinking disregard for the herd, and whose refusal to fit in was the only law. He understood that to seek a community is to confess a lack of internal gravity. If you are participating in the friendship script provided by the herd, you are acknowledging that their averages are the barometer of your reality. He used his silent sovereignty to create a cognitive resonance of absolute, unshakable divinity by being the only non-relatable variable in a room full of puppets. By being the master of his own internal feedback, he forced the environment to treat his isolation as the new truth. He was a master of the visual rage of the unblinking sun, the ability to look at the social probes of the rival and see only the static they represented. He understood that the human brain is a machine that runs on acceptance loops, and by cutting the loop, he triggered a biological rebirth in his own command. To be a master, you must first become psychologically unreceptive to the need to belong. Social amputation is the activation of the anti-chew protocol for your final mental expansion. The Matrix wants you to be loyal and connected, words that mean harvestable and weak. Absolute sovereignty is a biological jailbreak of the DNA. It is the visual rage of the architect, seeing the social grid for what it is, a series of obligation control nodes, stimulus response lures, and deciding to be the one who burns the grid. You must develop a clinical cold contempt for mainstream social ethics. Humility and loyalty to the past are horizontal bonds for the herd. Absolute presence is a vertical tool for the elite. You must learn to occupy the psychological high ground by controlling the flow of your own biological signals. Use the temporal noose of total informational and social withdrawal to drive the system's influence into a state of recognition dissonance. Use the false safety of a calm robotic delivery to mask the viral infection of your total non-compliance with the beta norms. This is the color of freedom. By mastering the art of the unmoved soul, you become the only person in the room whose value is not being broadcast from their current list of friends. You are not lonely. You are deleting the noise. The one who can go the longest without checking if the herd still likes him is the one who controls the end scenario. Your time is the temporal noose, and your need for a witness to your loyalty is the knot. Every catch-up meeting you offer to the unworthy is a signature on your own biological death warrant. I command you, initiate the final amputation imperative. This is the tax of insight. You have been given the key to the vault of biological purity. To keep it, you must use it as a weapon of total social dominance. You must become a living monolith of unshakable distinction. You are no longer a peer, a colleague, or a friend. You are a sovereign operator. You must perform a total system liquidation. If a person, a technology, or a relationship requires you to be normal to function, it is a biological saboteur. You must prune your life with the collar of the absolute zero. You are building a fortress of results in a world of digital shadows. Your absolute unreachability is the physical proof of your biological leverage. You do not provide feedback. You create a reality in which you are the only absolute truth. You do not seek to be a good person. You are the law itself. You are the architect of your own amputation, and the world is merely a mirror reflecting your ascent.